Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul channel. I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I just would like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance for you, Hashem, and the people I thank who've inspired me. I hope they can inspire you as well. We'll have links below this video to their sites. Here, Rabbi Shalom Arish, Rabbi Lazer Brody, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, Rabbi Eli Mansour, Rabbi Lon Anavar, Rabbi Yuval Ovadia, Rabbi Daniel Asser, Nisim Baruch Black, David Sachs, Rabbi Michael Skobek, Jews for Duties, Rabbi David Ashir, Rabbi Yaron Ruvain, and Rabbi Yosef Chesney. And I will have a link below this video to my first video, which explains what M.L.M for the soul means, what it stands for, and what I'm doing. So this is for the upcoming Parashat Noach, and this is again from Tiferes Yosef by Rabbi Yosef Chesney, and I call this consistent growth. So who is more beloved in the eyes of Hashem, Noach or Moshe Rabbeinu? If this question were posed to us, how would we approach it? It's a good question if you want to leave your own thoughts, but I'm going to tell you the answer here. We would compare the virtues and the accomplishments of the two and thus come to a conclusion. There is a fascinating midrash that discusses this point, but it comes from a surprising angle. The midrash Bereshis Rabbah Lamed Vav states that Moshe is more beloved than Noach. For Moshe was initially referred to as an Ish Mitzri, an Egyptian, and subsequently he was called an Ish Elokim, which means a man of God. Whereas Noach was initially a tzaddik, which is a righteous person, and subsequently he was referred to as an Ish Ha'adamah, an earthly man. Why is virtue the gauge of who is more beloved? How are we to understand this midrash? Rav Aaron Kotler Zatzal offers a phenomenal explanation. He says that what is beloved by Hashem is not the level we achieve, rather it is seeing consistent growth. The ruler of comparison is not in the area of virtues and accomplishments, rather it is in regards to their level of growth. Moshe grew spiritually, Noach went down, and thus Moshe is more beloved. This is an important lesson for all of us. Our focus should not be on the level we attain, rather our goal should be to exhibit consistent growth. There are many times that we meet people who come across as simple. They do not possess a high stature, and thus initially we are unimpressed with them. Subsequently, we hear their life story, their challenges, and the hurdles that they overcome. With this new perspective, we realize that this person is truly a giant. A cab driver once told the discipler, "The whole day I work and I don't get a chance to open a sefer," which means a book, but it means a Torah book, something that has spiritual value. Finally, at night I go to a shiur, which is a lecture. Unfortunately, because I am so tired, I inevitably fall asleep. Yet I persevere and return to the shiur daily. Is there a purpose to me trying to so much if regardless I will not hear the shiur? And I just want to make a personal note, I heard this from, I think it was Rabbi Mizrahi or other people. If you do fall asleep during a shiur, don't fret not, because your subconscious, actually your neshama, is actually absorbing it, every single word. So if someone would hypnotize you, you'd be able to repeat the whole lecture. So just so you know, don't feel bad. It happens to people. But you are actually still gaining more than you realize, and that's why at night, except for Shabbat and all the Yom Tovim, I have a player, a CD player. I highly recommend you do this if you can, and get CDs, Torah lectures I have from many different people, from Rabbi Mizrahi, Rabbi Anavar, Rabbi Ruvain, and I play them through the night. Not too loud, so you have to get in bed and see if you made it too loud, because sometimes at night, because it's quieter, you need it much lower, and then in the morning it sounds louder, so you have to just gauge it, but that's what I do. So that was just my own point. But what the disciple replied was, he says, they asked him, so now that I segued, you might have missed what I said there, so he says, is there a purpose for me? So the disciple replied, indeed there is, and I am jealous of your lot in the world to come. You serve Hashem to the best of your capabilities. I am not sure that I can say the same about myself. Now, if you knew who the disciple was, that's Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Shlita, his father, and he had Ruach HaKodesh. So he's saying about himself, very humble man, a Rav. The level we achieve is not what counts. Our perseverance and our consistent growth to the best of our capabilities is what truly matters. Noach was the greatest one in his generation, but he was the only one worthy of being saved from the Mabul, from the flood. How is it that in such a short time he fell so low that he achieved the title of Noach, the earthly man? What was Noach's motivation, to become a tzaddik? The pasuk says Noach was a tzaddik in his generation. Rashi speaks out that there is an opinion in Chazal, the sages, that he was only a tzaddik in his generation. Had he been in Abraham's generation, he would not have had this status. What does this mean? Why would he not have been as great? Rav Elyashiv Zatzal offers a phenomenal explanation. Noach's motivation was to avoid the spiritual deterioration of his generation. He was repulsed by the wicked ways of his society. In order to avoid this trend, he needed to swim against the tide, and thus he focused on his spiritual growth. Had he been in Avram's generation, he would not have had this motivation. Thus, he would never have achieved his holy stature. The Gra, which is the Vilna Gaon, says that anyone who is not constantly going up is inevitably going down. We don't remain stagnant. The only way to avoid falling to the lowest level is by striving for the highest. We live in a physical world. Its atmosphere automatically pulls us down. The only way to shield ourselves from the influence is to live above it by striving higher. There is no such thing as remaining stagnant. Someone who is complacent with their level and does not strive higher will inevitably fall. With this, we can understand how Noach fell so fast after the Mabul. Now that there was no longer wicked people spreading their vibes, he didn't feel the need to strive hard to fight the tide. Without this motivation, he lacked the stamina and need to strive higher. Now that he was not focused on spiritual growth, falling to the bottom was inevitable, and he thus became focused on materialism, to the point that he attained the status of an earthly man. Many times there are great people who swam against the strong tides. They had to resist the influence of an unspiritual society. Rahman al-Islam, we're in that situation right now. How is it that they remain untainted by those around them? The answer is they kept their focus on spiritual growth. As long as they were striving higher, they were protected from falling to the worst levels. We see how important it is to strive higher. One who exhibits consistent growth is beloved in the eyes of the Almighty. Only by striving for greater heights are we protected from falling down to the lowest of levels. And like I said, unfortunately, in the world we live in today, you have to, men, women, children, everybody, you have to keep that antidote. I mean, women have other antidotes, modesty, but the Torah, you got to keep infusing yourself. That's why I said the recommendation of leaving a player on at night, low enough that you can absorb it, but not too low that you can't hear it at all, and that doesn't maybe disturb other people. But it's so key to our keeping ourselves in a spiritual frame that we have to keep doing that. And I hope that we will all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and rebuilding of our final and everlasting Beit HaMikdash. Amen, and thanks for watching.